Hey YouTube, I'm Mars1952 and I'm at my daughter's house in her sewing room, and I'm going to cut up some defective Olfa mats to line or put a border around this work table so that my daughter can use the entire work table so she can cut bigger pieces. And she'll also be able to start the cuts on the zero line of this mat. This is a 3-piece mat. So most of you probably don't need this whole video to complete this task. You just got to come up with an Olfa mat that you can cut up. You can buy new ones if you want, or you can buy aftermarket, not aftermarket, but off-brand mats. So this will work perfectly well. If you have a big mat, like my wife does at home, that's defective because it's been cut so many times, it's just used up, you can turn it over, cut it into strips, put it around your work table, and enlarge your work area for practically nothing. In my case, this is a 3-panel Olfa mat, similar to the one on the work table, that is defective. And I'll come in close and show you what's wrong with it, but Olfa's sending us a brand new one. They didn't want the old one back, so I'm going to make use of it. So, let me, I should say that I don't have a tripod today, so it's going to be either the camera sitting on a box like it is right now, or handheld. So let me move in and I'll show you what's wrong with this mat. So here you can see the table. We're not using all of it. And the mat, this is where my daughter usually keeps her mat, in this corner like this. And this is the defective mat sitting on top. So here is the defect in my wife's mats. What do you know, it's focusing. Or maybe it wasn't focused before, I don't know. So we got a 1/16 inch gap there. And whenever my wife would have a piece of fabric straddling that gap and cut it using the lines, there would be a mistake. And sometimes she'd cut over here, no mistake, and it puzzled her for quite a while until she finally figured out that there was a gap there. Or not a gap, but when it was pushed together it was too short. So she called Olfa with hardly any fuss at all. They said, we'll send you a new one. They didn't ask for the old one back, so we are going to turn it into borders. This is the end of the mat, or the end of the table, and you can see I have a little more than 10 inches of bare table to cover up, and we want to center the mat, so I'm going to make it 10 inches and divide that in two. So I have two 5-inch pieces, one 5-inch on one end, one 5-inch on the other. This is the side of the table, and you see I have 5 1/4 inches to work with. I'm going to leave a 1/4 inch so that the mats don't come all the way to the edge, and I'm going to have a 1-inch and a 4-inch piece. The 4-inch piece will be on the back side, and the 1-inch piece will be on the side she works from. That way, when she puts her hook ruler on there, she'll only lose 1 inch, rather than if I did half of that distance, she'd lose a couple inches. So, or close to 3. So we're going to have it just 1 inch, and there'll be advantage to that. Once we get it cut, I'll show you. I did some measurements and calculations, and the B panel is going to be enough to do all the borders. That'll leave me with a surplus A panel that I can use in my shop, and a C panel that I can use to border my wife's cutting mats back at home. So let's see if you can see the cutting diagrams here. So I've got a 5-inch piece, a 5-inch piece. Those will be for the short ends. 1, 2, 3, 4-inch cuts. You need actually 3 of them to make the distance, but I can do 20 inches of this one at 4 inches. Then I can cut a couple of 1-inch strips out of what's left. 2 1-inch strips will go down the front, and the extra 1-inch strips here will finish that off. So there'll be a little bit left over if I don't make any miscuts. So knock on wood here, measure 6 times, cut once. Well, I'm getting ready to make the cuts. This is the side we're going to have up, so obviously I don't want to put marks on it. So I'm going to turn it over and cut on the line side. It'd be nice if I could just, come over 5 inches, but this isn't a full inch here, so I'm going to have to make a mark. I'm going to use a ballpoint pen to make the marks because that's sharp and it shows up on here. So I'm going to make the first cut. It's going to be a 5-inch. It's a little trick here that my uncle showed me years ago. Instead of making a single line, which invariably, especially when you're working with wood, it invariably follows the grain, and so you have two, essentially, a beginning and an end at different places. I make a little V, and the point of the V is where the mark, or where the cut goes. So my straight edge isn't long enough to do the whole thing in one go, so I'm going to make a mark in the middle, make a mark on the end. Okay, those are pretty precise. And I don't have, like I said, I don't have a long straight edge. My daughter has these for cutting fabric, or measuring fabric. I'm not sure what she does with them, but I'm going to use this as my straight edge because you can't run a razor knife, a box cutter, or a utility knife, depends on what you want to call it. You can't run that up against one of her nice plexiglass, or not, one of her nice Lexan straight edges, because I'd cut it, I'd shave off the edge. So, okay, that's precisely on the marks. That's good. So I put the tip of the ball point right on the tip of the V, push the straight edge up against it. And I do the same thing here. And then you usually have to come back and adjust a little bit. Alright, so that's pretty good. Alright, so there's the mark. The nature of these mats is they're going to be hard to cut. And I don't want to cut it all the way through, so I'm going to make a pretty deep score in it for the first cut. Then the knife will follow that score, if you're careful, for the subsequent cuts. And whenever you're doing this kind of cut, you have to be careful, because I have in the past, when I'm pushing it sideways against this to follow the straight edge, climbed up over it, and I cut the tip off of this finger one time. So just be careful about that. I'm going to make a nice deep scoring cut here. I've never done this, so if it doesn't work, you'll learn something the same time I do. So I'm going to leave the knife point in the material and move the straight edge. Continue the cut. I can tell by the feel of it that I'm through the gummy layer, this self-healing layer, and into an internal layer. So now I've made the first cut, and it is healed up. It is healed up, so let's see what happens. My plan was to make the cut and press down on it like this to open it back up again. So I can see a little bit of a cut there. Now let me get my weights. Alright, now you can see it. I'm going to try to follow that first cut. Let's see if this works. Now, go nice and slow. So if you wander off that cut, you can stop. This is working fairly well. So I'm going to go back again while I'm right here. Make sure the knife point is right in the cut. Come on. Cut again. Once you start to break through, this is a lot harder than I thought it would be. But you can see it's starting to work. See, we've got a cut. So it's very time consuming. I'm sure you don't want to watch the whole thing. So I'm just going to go ahead down, and I'll probably show you just at the end of this cut, and then I'll do the rest off camera. Okay, So I've made it more than halfway through here. And when you hold it, here's another tip for you. When you hold your knife, you're not trying to cut real hard. So put your index finger, or maybe 2 fingers, so you're essentially pointing. That way when you pull it, it follows. If you get down here too close and try to really put pressure on it, you're going to wander more. But if you just do like this and pull it, you're going to get better results. So maybe I need to tape that up. Alright, so I'm most of the way through here. Now you want to make sure you don't gouge your table when you're doing this. So I have it overhanging the edge just a little bit, so when I cut through, once again, I'm not trying to go very deep. Coming off the last of the cut too, you're bound to hit the table. There you go. So you really should, if you have some scrap wood, put some scrap wood down. Okay, so the last little bit here, I'm going to do a little bit more pressure. It's just going to saw through it. There we go. So now we have a nice 5-inch piece. And I'm not going to bore you with cutting the rest of them. The rest of them should go faster. This is how I ended up cutting it. I cut off a 5-inch piece, another 5-inch piece. These are for the short ends, like down here and over there. And then I figured as long as I had some material to work with, I'd cut off the narrow pieces, because they're a little bit more difficult. So I cut off a 1, and you can't really see it from there, but this cut is pretty wiggly, which is okay if I turn this to the outside, like here, but when I have to butt it up against another piece, it's got to be nice and sharp. So I didn't want to cut a second 1-inch piece and have 2 wiggly edges. So I cut a 4-inch piece, and it was extra careful, got a nice straight edge. Then I cut a 1-inch piece off of that one, and I cut the last 4-inch piece. That's for the back of the long side over here. And then I had this 4-inch piece to work with. I cut a 10-inch chunk to go on the end of the back side, and a 1-inch chunk to go on the end of this side. So let me set it up here. I'm going to dry fit everything before I do any gluing. This is the table with the pieces just dry fit. I haven't glued them down yet. My original plan was to use hot glue. I still haven't tested it on the scrap. But my daughter just has a tiny little weak hot glue gun. So it looks pretty good, I think. There's all that I have left. Not much scrap from the middle section. So this was a piece I said it got a little wiggly. That's not too bad, but if I turn it over, you can see the wiggles. And see that has some sizable gaps in it. Even that would be okay for government work, as they say, but I let the little tiny glue gun warm up. Put a few dabs of, or 2 dabs of glue under here. And you can't see it, but I can feel a little irregularity in there. Maybe if I use less glue the next time. I'm going to pull it off and see what happens. So it doesn't stick all that well. I suppose that's good because it can be removed. Maybe that's the characteristic of this glue, or maybe this is just dirty. I'll try it on the back side and see what happens. Use a smaller dab this time. Press it down. I suppose that having the glue not stick terribly well is good, because then it can be picked up and moved. Make sure it's cooled. I'm going to have to let that cool a couple of minutes and come back to it, I think, before I try to pull it off. So this is what it was supposed to look like here. I was going to have these upside down, these short 1-inch pieces. But my daughter likes it to have the inch marks. And so the pieces are already cut. It worked fairly well. But you have these kind of things. So to cut those off, I'm going to have to move it, and let's see, go down here a ways. Here's the next one. See, I'll have to cut this right here. Why aren't we focused? Try there. I'll have to cut it right here. Waste a little bit and go way down to the end. And I've got a piece of scrap here that I can cut to do this last piece. Once again, I'll have to cut part of this off, but it'll have this hash marks here. Can't avoid that. So I'm going to cut it, and then I'll glue it down. So this part here is driving me crazy. You can see the tape measure I've laid down there. The two mats pushed together are 1/16 of an inch off. My daughter can live with that, she says, but it's bugging me. So see, there's a slight gap between the boards there. In the middle, it's tight. Get the focus. Middle is tight. Now you go down to the other side. Oh, where are we here? Get all the way to the other side. There's a little bit of a gap. I'm going to try to straighten it out. I'll have to cut a 32nd of an inch off here, and a 1/16 of an inch in the middle, and a 32nd of an inch on the other side, which won't focus. So I'm back to this joint between the B and the C panels. It's a 1/16 of an inch off. I worked on the middle. Let me get this thing to focus. There we go. So it was wider in the middle. I sanded that down a little bit so it's relatively flat now, but it's still off. You can see the pen line here. It's a 32nd of an inch I've got to cut off. And here, a 1/16 of an inch. So that, cutting on the edge or something like this, it's real easy to wander. But I'm going to try it anyway because I'm compulsive. Here we have, it's set up to cut. This is just the edge of the board right here. This is the end piece turned upside down so I can cut on it. Not worried about damaging it. Got it weighted down with fabric weights here. And it's just going to cut a sliver off there, man. It's going to be... I can't recommend that you try this at home because it's probably going to screw it up. And I have a lot of experience screwing stuff up, I guess. So let me try to cut it. I have this set up so you can sort of watch it. Got a brand new blade here. And I'm using the plastic straight edge. I'm going to try to be careful not to screw that up too. So I've got double opportunity to screw up the mat and the straight edge. Score it. I measured this about 20 times. Now when you're cutting the big pieces, I would bow it over the edge because you have to separate the plastic so it doesn't drag. But this little piece will get out of the way when I cut it all the way through. It'll just bow out of the way. Hopefully. Once you start getting through the self-healing edge, it wants to drag quite a bit. I'm all the way through here. All right, cut it off. Let's see how it fits. Gotta go eat lunch though first. Here it is installed.
The cut was almost perfect. I'm a little short here now. I was 16th long, now it's about a 64th short. Could open up the gap a little bit, make that go away, but we're not going to do that. The other end is perfect. The line was nice and straight. Okay, after doing a whole bunch of fiddling around with the getting it all lined up perfectly and all these marks lined up perfectly, it's time to glue it. I did nip the corners off of all 4 corners so the fabric wouldn't snag on it. So I'm going to start gluing them down. I had one last check here before I start to make sure pieces are where they're supposed to be. Okay, I won't show you everything here because it's going to take a little while. You don't need to watch all that. So I'm going to give it, this glue gun is not quite up to the job, I don't think, but we'll try it. Line up the marks. Press it down. You don't have a whole lot of wiggle room on this. Once it's glued, it sticks pretty quickly. All right, so that looks good. Now I'll just keep on going. I'll do one more on camera. I'll probably edit it out. Yeah, this glue gun is struggling. I have a much better glue gun in my shop. See, this is sort of lumpy under there. The glue wasn't hot enough. I think that'll be okay though. It's sticking up. I don't know. Let's do it a different way. I'm going to go ahead and pull that up. Pointy. Alright, you can see what's happening here. The glue is not squishing. It makes it too fat. This one I managed to squish down pretty well, but this one is too fat. So I'm going to have to do it a little bit at a time since I don't have a good hot glue gun. I'll show you what I mean as soon as I get this peeled off of here. Alright, so now I'm back here. Glue gun's plenty hot. I'm going to lift up one corner, keep it in place. You can do this with have an extra glue, use that to hold it up. So I'm just going to glue down this corner here. Come on. Okay, that's nice and flat. So I'll just do it a little bit at a time. Okay, that's working pretty well. So I'll continue on from here. This is the very last section to glue in place, and I want to show you my technique. So I put it in place. I'm going to do it from, I'll do it this way. So I hold down one end with some kind of weight. These happen to be fabric weights. The glue gun's nice and hot. Pick it up carefully. Put the correct amount of glue in there, just a stripe, and immediately press it down. That makes it lay relatively flat. You know, it squeezes it down before the glue has a chance to get hard. Alright, so then I weight that end down to hold it in, make sure I can actually pull it up. And I do the same thing periodically. So I'm going to put a stripe right here, hold it down, squeeze it in place, move the weights, put another stripe in there, hold it down. I can still feel the glue under there, but it's just a slight difference. Of course, this is to protect the countertop from the hot glue. I'm going to do 2 more stripes. Alright. One last time. There we go. That is completed. This is the finished product. Came out really nice. I'm very happy with it. Hopefully we're in focus. Don't really have enough room to show the whole thing. But the outside edges are glued down, and so I can get that on camera. You can still easily pick up the individual pieces to take them out and clean them. Which that's the next thing we're going to do. We're going to clean and recondition these. Might make another video on that. I don't know. I think other people have made a bunch of them already. Well, that's all for now. As usual, this is the first time I've done this project. You know, I've filmed a bunch of projects like this. The very first time I did it, just figured it out as I go. And hopefully you can do the same thing with a little bit of skill and learn from my mistakes. So that's all for now.